All right, we've got a great day here on the Endless Hustle as I am joined by one of my all-time favorites, one of the great legends of television, a man that I grew up on Cheers, then Frasier, then a million other programs, and now also a beer maker. So you've checked off every box, Kelsey Grammer, and I want to talk all about it. Congratulations, brand new movie. Let's talk first all about that. It's called Charming the Hearts of Men. You're diving into the civil rights crisis, giving women's rights. Pretty cool stuff, isn't it?
It's fun. It's historically really fun to realize that this one guy who was kind of an obstacle in Congress was the guy that put forward this inclusion of women. I was never really aware that men were the only ones who were going to get this equality, and then that they had somehow forgotten about the girls, you know. So I love that this character, who was considered to be kind of a stick in the mud and a kind of a traditionalist and a very conservative Dixiecrat, would be the guy who spearheaded the movement to have women be included. But he was known as a guy that always was sort of pro women. He'd always been sort of lobbying for women's rights. So it wasn't like a complete surprise. The guy served in World War I. He served in World War II. He dedicated his life to America, and he loved the country. And he thought, you know, let's go easy on some of these things. That was not really a crime. But he did have the foresight to think we can't do this without including women, and that was an extraordinary thing. Great character to play. Anna Friel's in this movie. She's delightful in it. So there's this Charming the Hearts of Men. There's this sort of romance that takes place behind the scenes that she's involved in kind of wooing him to the idea of equality, and it's a great experience.
I was thinking back last night because knowing I had this interview, I was thinking back. How long has Kelsey Grammer been in my life? What's the first recollection I have of this man entering my life? I was a diehard, enormous Cheers fan. And I remember Dr. Frasier Crane's appearance on Cheers and then him becoming this mainstay at this bar that became part of me. Take me back to that time, that character, that show. Did you ever envision that what would happen happened?
I didn't, no, certainly not. But I mean, I did, you know, there's a thing that happens, you know, you're a legit theater actor in New York City and think, oh my God, you know, if I get a TV show, it'll ruin my career, you know, and all that crap. But so I had those concerns a little bit, but I realized I'd had a baby with a young woman with my first wife, and we weren't doing so well, but, you know, we wanted to have this child because we promised each other we would do that. And I realized, oh my God, I got to take care of her. I have to support her, and theater don't cut it. So I started imagining that a television show would be coming my way, and sure enough, a few months into that, and kind of like sort of setting it up in my head, making room for it in my head, the offer came in to do Cheers, and that was it changed my whole life, of course. But Frasier became this joy character. I mean, he's as great as any character I've ever played in my life. I mean, you can do a million things with him. He can do Shakespeare, and he can do a musical, and all the things I ever wanted to do, Frasier does. So he was a real gift.
It's funny because I was thinking about, has there ever been a better ensemble cast than that show? I mean, there have been some brilliant ones, whether it's Veep or Seinfeld. But when you look at the pure assembling of talent, from a young Ted Danson to Diane then Kirstie Alley in her youth. And it's incredible to think about when you're looking around as that show's happening, it's a hit at that point. What are you seeing? What are you feeling?
Well, for me, it was such a strange experience. I had no real understanding that it was a hit. I had no real understanding that it was a big, successful show. I just thought, well, it's just a show I'm working on. And yeah, it's cool. I mean, there's some perks, you know. I mean, people would say hello, you know, and you get to go free to some places, you know, or they'll fly you to another country and say, you know, cheers. I mean, there was really wild stuff that happened, but it took me a long time to sort of realize where I had landed, you know, just by sheer luck, honestly. But or maybe not just sheer luck, but when Kirstie replaced Shelley on the show, I did realize at that time, I thought, this is a huge opportunity for this show because they've got a new female lead in this show. And I mean, the sky's the limit here. So I remember saying to the Charles boys at one point, I said, boy, you guys I mean, this is going to be like, you know, it's going to go forever if you wanted to. And Kirstie was so delightful and funny. I mean, and Shelley was lovely in the role that she played, but when Rebecca hit the bar, it was like it just went on steroids. It was hysterical, and she was so funny herself. I mean, she's just a riot. I love her. So it's been a really fun ride. And then of course when Frasier kicked off, I mean,
So how does that work? Because now we're in the age where everybody gets a spinoff, everybody gets something. But back then, to get a spinoff was a true privilege. And there was a lot less space to put content. There weren't streaming networks. It was essentially like the big three. And then eventually Fox came into the picture. How does that conversation begin? Are you still on Cheers and they come to you and they're like, Kelsey, we're thinking about doing this?
they did come to me to do another show. They said that we want you. When Ted finally decides that it's over for Cheers, and that was his privilege, they said, we want you to do a show, not a spinoff. We originally planned to do a show about a guy that had been in a motorcycle accident because I rode a motorcycle. They thought, oh, let's use some stuff that Kelsey really does, and then he was going to run this sort of empire from his bed for the first 5 or 6 shows, and then finally get him out of the bed. But we wrote a script. Whether the guys at Grub Street wrote a script for this other idea, and then I went to dinner with John Pike, who was the president of Paramount at the time. And we ordered a drink, and he said, "Oh, this is really good here." Blah 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 blah. It's a famous old Italian place. It's in sort of Brentwood. It's, big red boots, and I was like, "Wow, this is real Hollywood." And he said to me, he said, "Kelsey, I think a sitcom should be funny." And I thought, "Oh crap! All right, so I guess you didn't really like it." And he said, "No." He said, "I want you to play Frasier," and that was it. And I said, "I got no problem with that," but it did say he's got to change his life. He said he can't be married and he can't have a kid. I mean, he has a kid, so he has to be a good dad still. But it can't be it can't be the weekly traffic of the show that it's about his marriage or his son. Because one thing I've always noticed about shows with children is because they grow up, every year, they are almost by definition the most fascinating thing on screen. And I just thought it wouldn't be wise to have that.
Frasier becomes a phenomenon. Even though you're doing great, it's a success, you're signing great contracts, great stuff is happening. Are you ever concerned at any point, all right, I'm experiencing all this success now, but when I decide to go off from Frasier, are people only going to see me as Frasier? Was that something that ever entered your mind?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, it does enter your mind, but then you realize that, without it, who knows how many other opportunities you would have gotten. So I've always been very, very cool about the fact that, I was asked to do leads on Broadway. I mean, that was my ultimate dream, and so it actually happened because of Frasier, so there's no reason to curse it. He's a gift, and he's turning out to be the gift that keeps on giving. He's given my family a great life. He's given my ex-wives a wonderful life. So things are very good.
You were all over my Instagram feed this weekend because you were up and down the Jersey Shore with your beer.
Right. I was pushing the beer, Faith American.
So I want to talk to you about that because I'm originally from Philadelphia. So all the places that you were hitting, and I live in New York now, but Asbury Park, you were in Atlantic City. I'm like, Kelsey's in my haunts right now. So First of all, when people see you and you're back behind the bar, what's the reaction? Do you still kick yourself that people are showing up?
No, there's a celebratory thing about it. People get the bar thing, and of course with the additional overlay of having been prevented from being in bars for the last year and a half, this opening up that's happened, and it's in fits and starts, and who the hell knows what's going to happen, but the virus will run its course, and eventually the virus goes away. That's what happens. This is we've been through this kind of thing before, but not in our generation, basically. So when they see me there, it's like, oh my God, it's really happening. This is real. And we're all going to have a good time. And yeah, maybe it's even careless sometimes, but I mean, people need to live. Humans need to get out and interact and be together. And drinking a beer is fantastic. And the beer actually is really good. So I've got a Faith American Ale and I've got a Faith American Calico Man IPA. 2 flavors right now. Working on another one. Actually tomorrow morning I got a call with one of the brewer guys. But it's been a great experience. The beer was ready to go about 2 years ago. And of course, right then, everything kind of, blew up. So what's great is we didn't get hurt by that. It just we had to kind of throw away one brew, one bunch of canned beer because it goes out of date.
Where does it begin for you? So I had a stage. I dated a girl from Western Pennsylvania. Her family brewed beer. I got into this whole beer brewing thing. I was like, oh my God, this is like wine. There's so many flavors and hops and oats. And I'm like, what is this shit? It's like an art form. Where did it begin for you? Why do you decide, all right, I'm going to start making beer now?
It was all about this land that I bought. I bought this land about 30 years ago in upstate New York, in a town called Margaretville. And when I was a boy, I used to go to Thanksgivings in Kingston, New York. So it's about 40 minutes from Kingston. And well, when I drive, it's maybe 55 minutes for other people. But it's, I thought the land was so beautiful and had been so prosperous at one point. It had been a huge cauliflower farm. It had been a successful dairy farm, and everything had shut down. And I'd walk the property, and there was water coming out of the land that was just pure water, clean, drinkable, right there, the best water I'd ever tasted. And I thought, how about beer? So it all started that way. And that's where I ended up thinking, I invited a buddy of mine to brew beer up to the barn and to see the property. And he said, yeah, it'd be great. I mean, why not? So I, having no actual specific knowledge of how to brew a beer, started talking to brewers about what I thought a nice beer would be. And they were able to say things like, I can't do that. Or I can do that. Let's give it a try. And so we did a few experiments and came up with a beer we really liked. That was the ale, Faith American Ale. And it's really drinkable, and it's got a little hoppy finish to it, but it's really refreshing. And I love this beer. And it just one thing fell into another, and so here we are doing it. And the cans are all artwork from the land where it's all made, and where the idea was born. The first pictures are of me and my daughter on the top of the hill of our property. It's just great. So it's always going to celebrate the location and refresh people. That's our hope.
I want to talk to you about fame. I had Matthew McConaughey on the show recently, and he talked about the first time he understood that the ticket had been cashed for him and he was now famous and there was no going back. For him, it was after A Time to Kill came out, and he was like, that Monday, it's a blockbuster, it's a hit. There ain't no going back from this. Wow. What was that moment for you when you realized that ticket had been cashed, you were now famous?
Well, it's interesting. It was never a goal to be famous. Cheers did that. I mean, when I had my first article in the Inquirer that was written about me, that was filled with lies, but I thought, okay, basically somebody said you don't have any power to go after these people because you are now public domain. Your right to privacy has been taken. Oh, and they basically explained that your right to privacy doesn't really exist, which was even more depressing because I'm kind of a constitutionalist. I thought, surely we have privacy. Apparently we don't. So that was what happened for me. And actually it was kind of a sense of loss for me in a profound way. But I had to say, okay, it's a casualty of fame and success. So I had some success, and I've been able to write a ticket for myself for any number of things I wanted to try to do, and that's been a great experience. There's been a fullness, a repletion in my life of experience that I might not have had if I had just stayed in the theater. But years before, I had a great experience with a guy. I used to be a waiter, and I was a good waiter. And but once in a while, I'd try to get an acting job. And it was like, damn it, I have to go back to waiting tables now. And finally, a buddy of mine said to me one day, he said, Kels, you don't have to be a waiter anymore. You're an actor now, and you'll always be an actor as long as you want to be. And that was a big, big day for me. So that was the big day.
When you experience that type of success and that type of fame and all the things that you probably dreamed of are happening, how do you process that in the moment? How are you able to understand the realization my dreams are coming true?
It's a very good question, because we're all kind of the inner critic that we all have, that we all carry with us. We're always willing to throw away our own joy somehow. Always go like, oh, it wasn't that good, or I didn't do this right tonight. finally, a buddy of mine, we were sitting at Sardi's. I just opened in Othello with James Earl Jones and Christopher Plummer, and I played Cassio. I was 26, I think. And Sardi's were sitting there, and they bring over the check, and they just say, "You can just sign it, sir." So that was like I've got my Sardi's account now. And that was a big, big thing. But I suddenly remembered my grandmother was gone. She had died. My mom wasn't there to see it. And I thought, and my granddad who raised me, that I loved, who I loved, was not there either. And I got a little sad. He said, "Kels, you got to celebrate the moment." And so I took a second out to say, yeah, this is pretty great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. What I love is I've never had an extended chat with you, and to see how humble and authentic you are is really refreshing. I'm like, here you are, you're Kelsey Grammer, for God's sakes, and yet you're like a dude I do want to go grab your beer with. It's awesome. How do you keep that? Like, were there ever moments where you felt yourself going off the rails a little bit and like, I'm not going to be the same dude I always was?
You know what? I went to a period when there were people that wanted stuff from me that I knew I couldn't give them. And I started to kind of resent them a little bit. And they were willing to walk up and just say, "I want this from you. You owe me this," stuff like that. And I thought, boy, this is a weird section of humanity I'm bumping into now. And I got a little resentful about that. And then I thought, well, no, you just have to say to people no. You have to learn how to say no to these people and realize that you have an opportunity to be really close with a small group of people, sort of close with a larger group of people, and trust only one or two. That's what helped me kind of get through that period where I had a bit of an edge, like a kind of a back off man kind of feeling about me. And that didn't last too long because I grew up being grateful for my opportunities for my life, and my granddad was a great influence on me. He raised me, and he was a World War II vet, and a guy that just said, you treat every person with respect and dignity, and anybody you deal with, that's what you owe them. And so that's always been who I am. And so it's, in those moments when I careened into like some sort of bad alleyway, I put it in reverse and got out.
So one of the main reasons that I started this show is I wanted to talk to successful people in all genres about the principles and the mentality that help make them successful. For you, Kelsey, what are the habits that you institute in your life to continue to elevate through everything you do?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I think the best example we can give to all people is to just keep trying, stay with it. Don't expect it to happen for free. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. You're going to hit blocks and roadblocks. If you give away, or if you sacrifice your self-respect somewhere along the way, it's going to come up and bite you on the ass. And the only other thing is to never quit. I mean, you never quit. I mean, stick-to-itiveness, tenacity. These are words that sort of echo through your childhood, right? Where you think, well, all right, yeah, it's tenacity. I mean, I don't know what the hell that means. But 40 years later, you do know. And that was kind of what it took. And there's the old jokes about what's the key to your success? It's like 30 big breaks. Whatever. You just keep going. I mean, it's the world's going to let you down quite a bit, but you have the strength you have inside you is it's endless. Honestly, it's limitless. You just have to access it and trust the universe. I don't know, something. I mean, I don't want to get corny. You got to have faith. I have faith in God, and I have faith in hard work, and that's kind of it.
Despite Frasier Crane probably being what's going to go on your tombstone one day, because that is such an iconic character. If anyone ever looked at your IMDb, you've had such a rich career. Frasier never even happened. Your career would still be incredible.
Yeah, I've done a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's what people, but is there one role for you that you either were up for or considering or may have passed on that you look back and you ended up seeing it happen, that you were like, oh man, I wish I did that one?
Well, there is one. I got thrown out of Juilliard. One of my teachers, Edith Skinner, said to me, "You're going to do great. Don't take this so hard. You're going to be great. I want you to go meet this man." Mort Schwartz was his name. He was an agent. He was Gregory Peck's agent, because when I stood and knocked on the door, Mort Schwartz was sitting there on the other side of a Dutch door on the phone, and he goes, "I'm on the phone with Greg Peck." So I said, "Holy crap!" Inside. And I walk in, and he says, "Oh, why am I seeing you?" And I said, "Well, Edith Skinner told me you'd seen me." And he said, she's great. So you were going to school at Juilliard, blah, 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 blah. And he looks at me and thinks, you know what? There's a guy just around the corner who's interviewing people for like a fairy tale in space. Go see him. His name turned out to be George Lucas. So
no way, you could have been in Star Wars. Oh
maybe,
my God.
So that's the one that got away. I mean, it didn't quite happen. He said, "Hey, you might be right for, well, there's 2 roles for guys in this. Maybe you'd be right for one of them."
Do you know what you may have been up for by any chance?
Oh, I think it was more for Han Solo. It's like, holy crap. I was probably a little young, but I mean, I was always considered older looking for my age when I was in my 20s. I mean, I was 20 something when I was playing Frasier, who was supposed to be 40.
That might be the greatest story ever, Kelsey.
This was pretty great.
Talk about a sliding doors moment. You become Frasier Crane, but you could have been Han Solo.
Yeah, right.
How crazy is that?
And I'm sitting in San Diego. I was doing a Shakespeare show, and that first scene comes on, and that ship goes, suddenly in the foreground, comes across, wipes, and then goes into, infinity. And I started going, what is this? And then I saw Princess Leia. And then I said, oh my God, this is that movie. So it was a pretty fun experience.
Dude, this was amazing. Kelsey, thank you for an amazing interview. Again, you're awesome. You're one of my all-time favorites. I love Cheers. I love Frasier. So getting to have this in-depth chat with you is incredible. And your new movie is called Charming the Hearts of Men. And this was absolutely a blast. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Bless you, man. Thanks. Good to see you.
Take care, brother. Bye-bye.